The Last Birdling is the latest visual novel made by Invert Mouse, who's been making visual novels for a few years now. It's about two young girls, a human named Tayo and a birdling named Bimonia. Birdlings are, in the fantasy world of The Last Birdling, humanoid creatures with superior strength, heightened senses, and wings, and they were driven to near extinction when tensions rose high enough for humanity to basically massacre all of them. But when Bimonia, one of the few remaining birdlings, comes across Tayo, their friendship grows to shake the world. Now, I obviously don't want to spoil anything here, but just fair warning, this story is really sad. If you're getting some Fox and the Hound vibes from that summary, you're not entirely wrong. This is a story about two children who become friends in a world that constantly and violently demands that they be separate. And over the course of its 3 to 4 hour playtime, it goes from lighthearted and fun to pretty dark and intense. There were definitely a few moments that had me gasping in shock, mostly in a good way. Mostly. Like I said, I don't want to spoil things, but if you're looking for a tragic tale about two friends in an ignorant world determined to ruin everything good they can represent, you'll mostly get your fix here. The writing has its ups and downs for me, but the story being told is an excellent one with well-realized characters. Tayo in particular stands out as an exceptionally compelling character. A young girl with no father and a mother who's idolized by the village, far older than her years and with something of a superiority complex. Her friendship with Bimonia is both an opportunity for her to have the childhood she has denied herself and a way to play big sister, enacting both her childlike tendencies and her responsible ones in a context free of her mother's strict discipline and the judging eyes of the rest of the village. She's definitely the strongest point of the story. The art can seem, at first, like your typical Western visual novel fare, anime light, basically, but it really grew on me. The character portraits are expressive, the backgrounds effectively communicate location and atmosphere, and there are even some neat animation tricks that you don't usually see in low-budget visual novel projects. The game's gallery of full-frame stills is excellent too, perfectly bringing drama into all the right places with, like I said before, some very expressive character art. I was very impressed at how well the feelings of the characters were communicated through the art in the end. The music is mostly what you would expect for this sort of game. Fairly simple, doesn't really stand out all that much, but it effectively communicates the mood. Nothing spectacular, but it does its job rather well. This being a visual novel, there's not much in the way of traditionally defined gameplay, but the player does make choices that alter the outcome of the story. There are 6 endings in all, and the way choices work is actually pretty cool. It has a point system, similar to most visual novels where your relationships and choices affect the outcome of the story, but those points are actually visible and generally show up when you make a choice that either favors the character's friend or allows their influence to inform your decision. So the more you're keeping their friendship in mind, even if it's just by Bimonia deciding to remember the manners Tayo taught her, the more your choices contribute to a stronger connection between these two characters and a better ending. It's a nice way to tie the choices thematically into the story at large, and while the story is rather tragic overall, there is a world of difference between the best and worst endings. Seriously, this game does get very dark. And on that note, probably the story's major weakness actually is that tonal shift. Overall, it's pretty well executed and absolutely serves the story, but there are points where it almost goes a bit too far. I found myself genuinely conflicted about some of the things the game seemed to espouse at later points, and while that kind of moral conflict is probably the point of such moments, I feel like the game's intent got kind of hard to see amidst all the darkness at some points. Also, there is a rape scene, thankfully not involving either of the young protagonists, and there's no graphic imagery, but still, kinda some harsh subject matter that has to be handled really carefully, and it kinda came out of nowhere for me. Overall, the tonal shift was handled very well, and it absolutely served in the interest of the story. Like I said, most of the time when I was shocked, it was a credit to the game's storytelling, not a deterrent. But it's not perfect, and you'll have to be prepared for some pretty rough stuff going in. Overall, I really appreciated the story and the way it involved me in it, but it's definitely not for everyone. In Games is Lit 101, The Last Birdling gets a B-. If you enjoy visual novels and sad stories and don't mind a pretty intense tonal shift, it's definitely worth the small amount of time and money it costs to play. Thanks for watching. The Last Birdling was purchased for me by Chelsea, who writes about anime and games and her own experience on her website, Some Strange Circus. The link is in the description. You should go check it out. If you want me to review a game and give you a shout out, email me at gamesliterature@gmail.com and we'll talk about it. See you next time.